Welcome back to the channel. In this video I'll be discussing a software topic, not an automotive topic, like I normally do on my YouTube channel, but I use this software in the creation of the videos on my YouTube channel and for other social media platforms. I use Adobe Premiere Pro version 13.1 and Adobe Media Encoder, which comes along with that in my subscription from Adobe. And the problem I've been having is I've started using a lot more still pictures in my projects. I create a bunch of still pictures using my Canon M50 camera that I'm actually recording this on right now. And when I import those into the project, where I either drag and drop those into the project into a bin in the Adobe Premiere Pro project, copying into the project itself in Adobe Premiere Pro appears to go quickly, but it's the enqueuing of the files into the media encoder, which goes a little bit slower, but that actually goes at a reasonable pace overall. The problem is when I tell it to ingest the files, I'm telling it to copy the files over to the project folder so that I have everything centralized in one area, and all my drives are SSD drives on my computer, so they're all fast. But the problem is when the media encoder starts to process the files, a JPEG file will take approximately 11 to 15 seconds per file. So if I have 400 or 500 files for it to ingest, that takes an outrageous amount of time to get that task done. So I've stumbled into a workaround that seems to work reasonably well. It's not the smoothest way of doing it, but it seems to work, and I'll demonstrate that here in the video. And it will reduce the time from, let's say, 11 to 15 seconds per file down to less than 1 second per file. So let's jump into a screen capture on my computer while I demonstrate the problem. I'm going to use 116 files that I had from a recent car show that I went to and demonstrate the ingestion slowness. And then I'll show you the workaround, and hopefully that's helpful. So let's jump over to that video now. Here are the steps to replicate the slow ingestion of pictures into an Adobe Premiere Pro project. The version that I'm using is 13.1.5 of both Adobe Premiere Pro and Adobe Media Encoder. They're the latest versions available as of this video creation on September 26, 2019. I create my bins over here in the project, and I can either do the right click of the import or drag and drop, which I normally do, and I will then bring that to the top here. So I have 116 files selected. I will then drag those over to my bin, and those will appear here. In theory, they're ready for use inside of a timeline. But the problem is that Media Encoder becomes so overburdened with the ingestion phase, it becomes unresponsive at times and extremely sluggish. So if you're doing any voiceover work within your project, it becomes a problem. And if you're waiting for all of them to be ingested, it takes approximately 25 minutes for those 116 pictures to become fully ingested into the project. So now let's bring up Media Encoder and show that it's enqueuing the files, and that's not the slow part, although I wish it would be faster than this. But the slow part is once the queue is fully populated and the queue is being processed, each file is taking 11 to 15 seconds to process, which is outrageous. The workaround that I'll show you in just a little bit reduces that to less than 1 second per picture that I'm importing. So once we get to the point where it starts actually processing the queue, here we are. So now we're beginning to process the queue, and notice I've got the elapsed encode time up here on the top. The circle there shows that this program is not responding, and I've got that up in the title bar there, and that's about how it goes. So the first picture took 11 seconds, and then as it moves through each one, it goes through this not responding phase, and now it's 23 seconds after just a couple of pictures. So while it's in this responding mode, so I'm going to wait for this to go away, and now I'm going to click on, once I get my mouse pointer back here, I'm going to click on stop. So I'm telling it to stop processing the queue, but what will happen is it will come up with a dialog box prompting me whether I wanted to complete the file that it's working on, and I do. I don't want to interrupt what it's already been working on. So I'll click yes to that. And then this encoding window will get updated, and it will then show that it's not encoding at some point here in the hopefully near future. So not currently encoding. So if we go look at the queue here, you can see that we've done 6 files, and it's taking 1 minute and 3 seconds for those 6 files. Of course, that's outrageous for what's being done. It's simply copying the files over. It is using the following settings for the ingestion. So let's look at the project settings. And ingest is set to copy with MD5 verification. And as I said, my workaround, the same amount of work is being done, but it's able to be done with less than 1 second being incurred for each file. So let's go back to Media Encoder. And I'm going to say save the queue. I'm going to exit Media Encoder. And the workaround being that I simply exit and bring it back up. If I were to tell it to start processing the queue again, it would be that same sluggish per file ingestion time. So it's not like stopping the queue and restarting the queue within the same instance the program would resolve the problem. It doesn't. So all I've done is exit the program and come back in. So something in the enqueuing of all the files into the queue and the beginning of the processing, there's so much overhead in Media Encoder that it causes it to go to the 11 to 15 seconds per file. So the files that were already processed are no longer in the queue. Now if I tell it to start processing, it's basically, we have several files within just 3 seconds of encoding time. So the 116 files that would have taken over 25 minutes based on the pace that it was going at are now going to take just a minute or two to ingest into the project, and then Media Encoder's back to the performance levels that it should have been in the regular ingestion process. But this workaround gets you to the point where the performance is back to where it should be. Now, if you import additional files later on in the project, you may have the same problem. So you might have to do this a couple of times depending on how many files you're ingesting into your project. But sometimes I can have 300 pictures into a project that I'm trying to ingest, and I can't wait an hour to hour and a half for it to complete that based on the 11 to 15 seconds per file. As you can see here, we're at 56 seconds of encoding time, and we're done. So those first 6 or so that were completed, so there was 110 files processed in 1 minute, rather than 116 files taking 25 minutes. So if we go through the status, we can see the checkbox or check mark there, and they're all status done. So that's my workaround for this issue. If you have a better way of performing this without having to go out and stop the queue like I've shown you here, please leave a comment down in the comment section and give me your thoughts on how to better perform this. But if this has helped you, I hope you liked the video and subscribe to the channel, and hopefully we've helped each other out in learning how to better work around Adobe Premiere Pro's performance problems in ingesting files. Thanks for watching.